Hey everyone. You may have noticed we have a little bit of a different thing going on today. We have a special guest here
Yes,
on the Old Warlock
special
Podcast. But
guest.
before we get into that, I'm sorry, we have to do it. Check out our Kickstarter. Link is down
Yes,
below. The actual
yeah.
campaign has not started yet, Expedition to the Forest of Moon. But if you want to start following it, check out the
Please,
landing page. Please do.
please start following it. That helps us in getting the information out to more people, which may mean it gives us the idea that, or it gives us the chance to have the Kickstarter be that much more successful. The more people who sign up to follow it, it's extremely important. So if it looks like something you might be interested in, please follow it.
Yes. But without much further ado, today we are getting the opportunity to talk to Robby, the creator and founder of Enclave, which is a game that actually you've been playing a lot. I
I've been
haven't gotten
playing.
the
Yeah.
opportunity to play it yet, but it sounds like a lot of fun. We're really excited to talk to him about his experiences with Kickstarter, with game creation, and kind of just how he's come to the point where he is today.
So, without further ado, let's jump into our interview with Robby of Enclave. Hey guys, it's Jim from the Old Warlock, and we're here today with Robby Howell. He has created a game that I absolutely love. It's known as Enclave. We wanted to have Robby on the channel. He has graciously taken out some time out of his extremely busy schedule to be able to talk to us about Enclave, why he created it, how the game functions. Like I said, I've had the opportunity to play in it. Robby, how many times have I done this now? Three
I
times, I
think three
think.
or four.
Three,
And
three or
every
four.
mission you've been on has been a coconut, so it's worked beautifully.
I have loved the game, and so that is really the reason that I wanted to have you on here to give our audience a little bit better understanding of the game, and hopefully direct them toward it, and then they can see if it's something that is something that they would like to jump into. But um, Alexander is with us, of course. Robby is
Yes, I
across the
am.
country. So keep in mind, folks, if there are any technical issues, it is all on Alexander. It has nothing to do with me.
I will fully accept blame. Yeah, that's on me. Sorry, gang.
Okay, so Robby, first off, and this is a question you and I have talked about a lot of things over the past couple of years. For those of you who don't know, Robby, he graciously really helped us out with our first Kickstarter. I had a lot of questions. We had never done anything like it before. Uh, I was able to ask Robby all kinds of questions, and he was very good at giving me yeah, don't go down that road and step in that pit. You want to go over to the left and avoid the spikes over here. It was very helpful to us, and I think that it's one of the things that helped to make our Kickstarter successful.
Hmm.
But Robby, give us some background on your history on Kickstarter, the development of Enclave. Why did you develop it? What drove you to develop it the way that you did? Basically, I'm opening up the floor for you to tell us about your game.
Well, that's extremely kind of you, Jim. I've loved your content for a while. You are one of all of two or three like actual D&D channels that I watch, and it's for good reason because you guys have some of my favorite tabletop content out there.
Thank you.
And as such,
Thank you. That's very nice.
it was really a treat to be able to hear back from you guys when I was setting up my own Kickstarter and I was reaching out to a list of content creators. I put together a list of 240
Wow.
different tabletop content creators. I reached out to every single one of them, and you were one of 30 who got back to me,
Nice.
and one
Good.
of 6 who I ended up working with, I believe. And honestly, you were the top of my list because I love your work. Uh, it just happened to be a wonderful bonus happenstance that I've gotten a chance to like talk with you in a little more detail and help you out with your Kickstarter, which I'm thrilled to hear. My input was helpful.
Very much
Oh,
so.
very
To be
much
It
so.
honest,
really
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really was.
that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Because to be honest, um, the reason I was able to help, if I was able to help, was because I stepped in most of those pitfalls myself.
Right.
Uh,
No, and you explained
Sure.
that at
Yeah.
the outset, and
yeah,
that's it's great to follow somebody else as they make their way through the
absolutely.
minefield. So yeah,
Yeah, I blundered through so others could fly, right?
there you go.
Uh, and it's been fun. I fully intend on doing another, but Enclave's development has been quite an interesting saga that's taken up at this point almost half of my life.
Wow.
I started designing diceless games back when I was arguably 7, but they started becoming like anywhere near decent when I was about 12. And by the time I was 15 or 16, I had my first paying clients as a paid professional DM,
Awesome.
do only running my own work. Now, the funny thing about this is I did not know that tabletop role-playing games were a thing. I didn't even know that D&D existed until I was about 17.
You had mentioned that to me. Yes,
wow.
I remember that.
Okay.
Yeah. And so my games evolved purely through convergent evolution, by myself and my friends trying to like act out video games because
Sure.
my parents didn't let me play video games very often.
Okay.
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to be repeating that cycle on my own children soon. Yeah, so I came to this, I guess you could say organically, which meant I had to like solve a whole lot of problems that other games had already solved before me, right?
Right.
But it allowed me to come to it very honestly and to kind of approach the genre, now I can see in retrospect, in a very unique way, which I think is to my benefit, because being a diceless designer has a lot of unique perks that we'll get into later.
Sure.
Yeah.
The benefits of diceless systems. But specifically for Enclave, I made my first draft of the game when I was 15 because I was trying to imitate the game Diablo 2.
Okay.
It started as me trying to act out Diablo 2. And we iterated through a bunch of different ideas over the next couple of years. I'd say it started to become really recognizable for what it is now when I was 18 and just hitting college. And the true beta, so to speak, began my second year in college. The first ever recognizable Enclave mission was September 25th, 2014.
Wow.
I want to say. Yeah. Because we actually celebrate the anniversary.
I was going to say,
Nice.
Having that date's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I always remember it because the mission went over by like 3 hours. And so it was September 25th to 26th. So it's both. Yeah. And initially, Enclave was a very passionate home group. We had in college within the first year, we had like 20 or 30 people playing.
Wow.
I started to train new hosts. And then over the next 4 or 5 years, Enclave was tried by like, I'm going to guess upwards of 200 people. I tried to bring it to conventions. I tried to do all sorts of things. But I didn't have a bloody product. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear or not. So
moderate swearing,
Yeah,
low level
okay,
swearing
yeah.
is great.
I'm kind of inclined towards it, so I'll try to censor myself. Yeah. I didn't have a product. Instead, Enclave was purely an oral tradition that I brought players in and they learned on the fly. And pretty much the only things we wrote down were like character sheets and like classes. We didn't write down any of the rules. And so when I would bring it to conventions, people would be like, so where do I buy it? And I'm like, well, that's the joke, my friend. You don't.
You can't.
Like hop in our Skype group, and then we migrated to Discord.
Right.
And yeah, as you might imagine, it didn't really get that much support. And I think that's kind of for the better. Because in retrospect, working as a paid professional DM blows. It's terrible. You make almost no
Nothing
money
for the hours you put into it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And it turns friends into customers.
Right.
And customers have expectations, and it makes the power dynamics so weird.
Yeah.
And I cannot recommend it less, to be perfectly honest. However, I learned a lot about how to actually make the game work. If nothing else, the 8 to 9 years that I was running what we call now Legacy Enclave not only provided me with a ton of content and like material, but it also allowed me to really refine what works and what doesn't. I think at this point in time, I've hosted probably upwards of 2,000 sessions of Enclave, clocking over 20,000 hours of game time, not including another 10,000 hours of dev time at an estimate.
Wow.
And so it was a game that was already pretty much done by the time I actually decided to get my act together and make it into a book. Yeah. So that's a rough history of the development of the game. Apologies if that was long-winded.
No, not at all. Oh. Because again, I've been curious about ever since we first started having conversations. Again, it's like 2 years ago, I think. And the more that I've gotten into Enclave myself, both playing the game and then just having conversations with you about gaming in general, I've wanted to know that backstory because to me it's an interesting thing to have come at it, like you say, organically, and with no preconceived notions about what a game should be. And the interesting thing that I have found in this, and I think that we mentioned this when we did a short for you for Enclave, for your Enclave Kickstarter,
which I'm very grateful for.
Oh, that was no problem.
Of course, yeah.
But the thing that I think struck me the most when I first started going through the rules, the copy of the rules that you had sent me, was that it's Enclave is almost the game that we aspire to in our D&D.
Yeah, I've
Minim-
heard that from a lot of people, which
yeah,
is a wonderful compliment.
well, to me, it's fantastic. Minimal dice rolling. It's more about, number one, trusting whoever's running the game to run the game fairly.
Yep.
But then at the end of the day, it's all about trying different things, not looking at a character sheet so much, but looking at different ways to approach a problem or to problem solve or to have character interaction or player interaction. And you don't need dice to do it. It's all about description. And to me, that's what we've striven for decades in our D&D. Now, are we going to be able to get rid of dice in our D&D? No, it's so fully ingrained. It's like, it would be like,
Maybe someday, Jim. You never know.
but I mean, we are closer and closer to that. I mean, how many times, Alexander, do we play a game where there is not a dice picked up for the entire evening?
I mean, honestly, that's most of the time when we play now. It's pretty much just down to combat and some perception stuff.
That's
now,
pretty
aside
much
from
it.
That, not too much.
And so anyway, and I don't mean to go on about it, more than I should, but that was what struck me about Enclave at the very beginning. And then having played it, it was just reinforced to me that this is a really fantastic way to approach the game, for not just the players, but also for the person who's running the game. And to me, it's something that people need to check out as soon as they get the opportunity, because it's can be a heck of a lot of fun to play.
Absolutely. Well, I'm very grateful that you said that. It means a lot to hear. And as someone who has been a forever DM, I think is the term, for my entire career, I've never liked playing games. I only want to run them.
Sure.
I feel like one of the main advantages that I could bring to the book was I have a whole third of it devoted just to tips for both hosts and players. They aren't hard and fast rules. Well, a small amount of it is, but most of them are examples of what have and haven't worked for both me and people I have observed. And I think that I'd like to say that's an optimal way of doing it. I'm not going to commit to optimal yet, but it's approaching optimal.
Got it. Well, so tell us a little bit about the actual mechanics of the game, for lack of a better term. Let's go into character classes first off. I mean, for those of you who might be interested, I play a gunslinger in Enclave.
And very well, too.
Oh, thank you. And it is a blast to play. No pun intended. It is a blast to play. I see what I did there. It is a blast to play Sloan the Gunslinger because of the way the game is run. But give us some idea of character development, how you developed almost the archetypes for these different characters. They are archetypes, I guess I should say.
Yes, they are.
But give me examples of what led you towards certain character classes, including them in the game.
Oh, absolutely. So you hit the nail on the head with archetype. When I design a class in Enclave, I am trying to fulfill a trope that is grounded in pop culture, myth, fantasy, everything. And because Enclave is genre and setting agnostic, you can have characters from any background you want. It means that I am entirely free to draw from whatever source material I would like when designing a class, which is incredibly freeing and very fun, and lets me pack things full of references without cramming the references down your throat.
Right.
What I wanted to do when I was creating the book was pick a selection of classes that covered the gamut of playstyles as best I can. And I mean, there's some big omissions, right? But as best I could, while also having a combination of familiar and strange, because the way Enclave plays allows class design to be so much more varied and weird than you can get in other games.
Yeah.
I wanted to get a selection of classes that could show that off. I think the two most obvious examples would be the Librarian and the Wanderer, two classes that have zero innate combat capacities, and yet, I mean, people say the Librarian's the strongest class in the game right now.
And I would agree.
Is.
I would say you're right, yeah.
It's bonkers. It's too good. We'll have to nerf it slightly, but without ruining it. The reason is because the game works in such a way that having information gathering, social tools, and plot manipulation are all actual codifiable mechanics that have really big implications in game and are fun. The Gunslinger is one of the simplest and most straightforward classes, And yet even then I wanted to approach it in a way that wasn't just, what do I do? I shoot. What's my ability making me do? Shoot better, right? No, that's dumb. I want to make abilities something that you could not do by yourself with just good description. And so while also like playing into the game's strength. So for example, with the gunslinger ability Trick Shot, I'm sure you've picked this out, Jim. A lot of people first reading the class don't. Trick Shot is secretly a way to get almost perfect accuracy on a shot.
Right.
That's like the thing that you use it for, because obviously the fantasy of the ability is you're bouncing a bullet off of something to hit something else. But since it's delivered by a pitch, which is a mechanic in Enclave wherein the player proposes an addition to the game that has to be congruent with what's already been established. If you give a great pitch and you bounce that bullet, what's the economy going to say? Oh yeah, it was an awesome pitch, but your bullet misses. No. And so secretly that ability is a way to get fantastic accuracy.
Right.
And so that's kind of the way I approach class design, to fulfill archetypes, to like forward what makes the game unique and special, and to only give an ability where someone's own innate like descriptive abilities and like common sense capacities would not be able to fill the void. As a brief, do you mind if I take like 2 brief tangents?
No, take all the tangents you want.
Please,
We're here to hear what you've got to say. So
thank you very much. Yeah, I threw out the word conduit there, and I just realized I didn't contextualize that. I do not call hosts in Enclave GMs or DMs. I call them conduits. And this is a term I came to when, again, I didn't know what the heck a tabletop RPG was, to try to describe what I do. And later on, when I heard the term Dungeon Master, I thought it was frankly dumb. Like, I'm not a master of anything. And anyone who's like hosted a game that is diceless knows the same thing. You are not a master. You are like, if anything, you are the audience.
Right.
And your players are the actors on stage. And so to call yourself a master, I think, is pretentious in the context of a diceless game. However, the other thing I wanted to mention is since I had the background of Legacy Enclave when I was choosing what classes to put in this book, I was spoiled for options because in Legacy, we had over 130 classes.
Whoa, geez.
And each class in Legacy is like 2 to 3 times more complicated than what you see in the book right now. So,
oh, wow.
Not only that, but the amount of rules you see in the book, I have it on the shelf back there, actually. In that book, that is like maybe 5% of Legacy. And so the hard thing with creating the book was trimming and like trying to create the most condensed, boiled down version that is still recognizably Enclave as a point of entry. I intend on doing other Kickstarters. I intend on publishing substantial expansions to Enclave and steadily building it back towards the magnitude and scope of Legacy. And a big part of that is going to be releasing a ton of classes, like loads and loads of classes. Because that was one of the things that made Enclave so fun, is we have the ability to have a billion classes, and I had plans for over 300 more on top of the 130 we had. So I really had my pick of which ones that I started in, which was great.
But before we get too much further down the road, I think maybe we should explain what the background, what the lead-in to Enclave actually is. What is the Enclave? What are the missions like? Because, and again, one of the things that I've loved about Enclave is having a gunslinger, but finding him not in the Old West, finding him in a variety of different locations and a variety of different, I guess settings and locations is the same thing, but a variety of different, maybe even paradigm is almost the way to say it, because it is completely different. It's not like, oh, I'm in the desert, I'm in the forest. It is, no, I'm in a completely different culture each time I go in and play. But that's what makes it so much fun, because I have to find a way to use gunslinger abilities in different ways depending on the mission that I suddenly find myself on. But to give us some idea of how the backstory of Enclave works. What is an agent? Why is the agent there? And then where do they go once they start the game?
Absolutely. I've been doing a lot of conventions recently, so I'm getting good at this side of the pitch. So Enclave takes place in a self-contained multiverse, an infinite world called Manifold. And in Manifold, there are no limitations on setting or tech level or genre or anything. You can think of each individual pocket of Manifold as being its own reality that are only vaguely linked together, pretty much entirely based on plot convenience as a player or playgroup wishes.
Sure.
The only unifying feature throughout all of Manifold is the Enclave, which is a shadowy mercenary organization at the hub of the infinite world, whose tendrils are everywhere throughout it, but whose actual name is known to a fraction of a percentage of the population of the infinite world. Every player character is an agent of the Enclave who has come to it through whatever contrivance you want. Maybe they were recruited by like another character on a mission. Maybe they like accidentally stumbled into it and got signed up. I don't care. It doesn't matter how you get to the Enclave. The point is that your characters are there. And whenever you play a session of the game, you and your fellows are deployed out on a mission for the Enclave somewhere throughout Manifold. The Enclave can be hired by anyone. Missions can be anything. And if you're being sent somewhere, you can be guaranteed that someone is paying somewhere. And because of that, this solves a number of problems. First of all, it is, as the hub world of the game, the Enclave is effectively the thing that allows all of the game's mechanics and structure to function. It is because of the Enclave that we can have games be one-shots, which is one of the huge advantages of Enclave.
Definitely.
You don't have to schedule a billion sessions with the same group. You can just play with whoever showed up that day, which is, you can, and also I should note, 1 player, 1 conduit, just as doable as 1 player, 4 conduits. The record I've hosted for is 14. Would not recommend it. It was a nightmare, but I'd say 5 or 6 is very doable. Pardon me, got sidetracked. And so the other big advantage of this, in addition to the game being held in one-shots, is the Enclave teleports you to your mission. You don't need to travel. There's no downtime, there's no travel time, there's none of that. And when you're finished with a mission, you teleport back. Bam. And so because of that, the Enclave missions can be extremely fast-paced.
Right.
There's minimal lead-in. You can just be teleported straight into the action. The Enclave's already briefed you on your mission. So while obviously there's going to be many times you're going to be interacting heavily with NPCs, you don't have to do the whole rigmarole of going into town saying, so what's going on around here? And some blacksmith comes out and says, oh, it's all that. You don't need to do that. It trims the fat. Again, I didn't know the structure of traditional tabletop before designing Enclave, but in retrospect, it allows for a very streamlined experience that allows the actual play to be the spotlight of the session.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that the times that I have played, game time, real time, I think we played maybe 5 hours. The last time we played 4 hours, 5 hours. It was
maximum 4 hours. With your sessions, they've been like 3.5 to 3:45, and then we like blab for half an hour.
Right.
So,
but what I'm getting at is that the actual time in game, we're talking hours.
If not less,
right?
If not much less.
I think the first mission I took part in, what might have been the better part of half a day, 3/4 of a day. This last one, it was hours. We're talking about just a handful of hours, and the mission was over. But that's a lot of fun because on one hand, there's a lot of quick thought going on. There's a lot of adaptation. There's a lot of taking information and figuring out the best way to use that information because boy, time is clicking really fast and you've got to get your stuff done and get the heck out of there. That makes for an exciting game. So, I love the fact that it is essentially a game of one-shots. But again, I'll keep going back to it, but they all take place in a different locale, which makes it double fun.
Well, that gets to the other thing I was gonna get into. Before that, though, as a brief addendum, you can absolutely play Enclave long form, in like traditional campaign style structure. It supports it just as well. We even do things where if there's an overarching plot, what you do is you have a different group go into each section of that plot, which gets more people involved in the story and also still preserves the advantages of the one-shot structure. There's even mechanics that allow people to do stuff off of mission that I'm going to be introducing in the next edition of the game that I can get into later if you'd like. But yeah, overall, I'd say that the one-shot structure and the pacing and the speed of the game is a big part of what makes it fun. And especially because, again, one of the advantages of having the Enclave as a plot device is after every mission, you're patched back up to full. And so you can push yourself to the very, very limit. You can have all of your limbs missing and be like 2 seconds from death. And if you can teleport out, you're good, which is incredibly exciting when it happens because you're not allowed to teleport off until the mission ends or you request emergency ping out, which always takes longer. And so even if you're in a miserable position, there is still tension and risk. It's not just a get out of jail free that gets you back home.
Well, and the tension, I mean, I think it was my second mission. The tension
Oh yeah, that was sick.
was, I would not have gotten out except that one of my companions just happened to say, "Oh, I better hit his button to get him out of here," because
Yeah.
I was essentially at death's door times 3. But the excitement about it and the tension of, am I going to get out of this in the last 30 seconds of this game? Incredible stuff. It really high end excitement. Really good.
And the best part is it's the game that does it, right?
Yes.
It's just the structure of the game that does it. The other thing I wanted to add to this is, again, one of the advantages of an infinite world with no limitations on genre or setting is I design sessions on the spot. I don't do prep work in general. I encourage all conduits to try to learn how to do this. Not because they have to. If you give me a day, that's a luxury. I have so much time to do whatever I want. But being able to do it spontaneously is fantastic. It's so freeing. It makes it so that no matter who shows up to the game, you can make it work. Right. And one of the advantages of, even if you take a week to design, right? Since we design Enclave as one-shots, you are actually able to design the mission specifically to the strengths of the people on it.
Right.
And one of the hallmarks of a good Enclave mission is that it caters to the strengths of your players while still presenting them with substantial and engaging challenges. I'm going to flip through my little notebook to actually find the notes that I took on the mission that I last hosted for you, Jim.
Oh, okay.
Let me see if I can find it.
So was it the last one you almost died on there, or was it the one before that you came close?
He almost died on this one too, but it wasn't nearly as close.
The one prior to that, it was bad news. But I almost bought it here too.
Here, I don't know if you're capturing screen super easy. That's all my notes for that mission. One page. And the way that we generate missions in Enclave is, not only do you take your characters and their classes strongly into account, but each player gives you a focus word, which is a word or a short phrase that you, the conduit, uses as inspiration to design the mission. And so for this one, I got from Jim, distant. From another player, the desert sun rejects your apology. And 3, the dark horse's dream of a family worth fighting for. Holy hell, right? That's so cool. And by just thinking about those words and free associating for all of 10 minutes, I came up with an idea. And because the game is diceless, I don't have to create stat blocks for enemies. I just have to have an idea of what's going to happen and what sorts of obstacles I'm going to throw, and let my players surprise me and allow their choices to lead me in my design as it is happening.
And I think that's the thing that I love about it, because it's choices leading to choices leading to choices, but from both the player and the conduit. So it's all, they all build upon one another, which means everybody is kind of heading toward the same subconscious direction. And that's what makes it so much fun, because after a certain amount of time, you're not being railroaded. It's just what is in everybody's head as they're working through these decisions that they've made. They inevitably lead in the same direction. It's great stuff.
If you've ever danced with a good dancer, they just know, right?
There you go.
And it takes only a couple sessions of playing Enclave to get that.
Right.
It's so quick to pick up, because people, I don't know how to describe it. People just come onto the same page. And some of the players I've been playing with for a decade, they will know the mission. They will know everything that I'm doing within the first 10 minutes of playing.
Sure.
And then they're just along for the ride. And it's great. It's great fun.
But at the same time, I haven't known any of the players that I have played with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, within 10 minutes, for the most part, we're all on the same page, and we've all recognized our roles in the mission. And you just kind of drop into it, and then pretty soon all the decisions are clicking. I've never had a player in an Enclave game that I thought, they really don't know what they're doing here, or maybe they're making bad decisions. That simply has not been the case.
It does happen, but it's less crippling.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It doesn't derail everything.
Exactly. And people pick it up. They'll realize, and then after the mission, they'll say, wow, my first half was awful, but then I felt like I kind of picked it up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And some players just like some people have more trouble when they're first coming to the system. You're patient with them, they'll get it.
Right.
Like it's to give you an idea, I have hosted Enclave missions for as young as 7 years old.
Oh wow.
And as old as 80.
No kidding.
And
Oh, that's
an
cool.
80-year-old man
That's
who
neat.
doesn't know what a tabletop game is and never played a game in his life besides Parcheesi, if he can get it,
Yeah.
anyone can, right?
That's really cool.
Give us a quick rundown of just the character types in Enclave. You've only got maybe 6
Yep, we have
that are
six
actually
classes
in the book.
Yeah, exactly. The 6 classes we have the Gunslinger, who's the range DPS, if you want to be technical about it. They are, I'd say, best archetyped as a social combat class with a big emphasis on positioning and more of an emphasis on combat than social, but good social implications. One of the things that Jim is so masterful with on the Gunslinger is his positioning is awesome. Knowing where to be before you start shooting is so important. So many gunslingers just completely eat it, like standing right in front of their enemies like a bonehead and just ripping and hoping it works. Yeah, it doesn't work. Something that you find in Enclave is that characters are much squishier than in other games. We don't have HP pools, so a knife to the neck kills you unless you have extremely high resilience, in which case it doesn't break your skin or maybe only goes part of the way in. And so
I like that a lot. That's cool. I'm a big fan of that idea.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like no HP. And so because of that, your characters are very vulnerable and you have to be a lot more careful with what you are doing and where you are going. And the Gunslinger is a great class for that. Then we have the Illusionist, kind of the main caster of the game, so to speak, but a largely non-combat one. Obviously, they can do a lot in combat. Not being able to see your enemy is pretty crippling, but they don't do the damage themselves usually. And are an incredibly subtle kind of support stealth utility class. Because again, I didn't want to have just a conventional caster. Then we have the Librarian, arguably the strongest class in the game, an information gathering specialist that also has one of the hallmarks of Enclave, namely plot manipulation, which is very good. The Librarian has an ability called Fun Fact, where when you use it, you can state a fact about the world that has not yet been established by your conduit, and if it is congruent enough with the world, it becomes true and has been true all along.
Cool.
That is bonkers when you are good at it.
Yeah.
It's a very skill testing class, but very, very fun. And no combat abilities. If you're like caught with your pants down, you're boned. Then after that, we have the Thane, which is a more classic kind of tank class. They are good in a lot of domains. They have social tools, combat tools, utility tools, but they generally specialize in kind of rallying people and turning non-combat people into combat people, and are especially good at working with NPCs. Like I said, Enclave characters tend to be quite squishy, and so having an actual tank is very, very helpful. And typically the Thane and the Gunslinger are a great combo together.
Yeah.
The next class is the Thunderbird. This is a more aggressive magic class that focuses on speed and maneuverability and then blasting people to smithereens with lightning. It has very low social abilities in general, but it makes up for it with a lot of power, though it also has a risk of friendly fire. And the last class that we have in the base book is the Wanderer, which, like the Librarian, is purely non-combat, but is much more on the social side with a lot of information gathering and utility stuff, kind of a dark horse class for people who just want to see what happens, kind of.
Sure.
Cool.
So,
well, I mean, for these, you say, sorry.
No, you're good.
You say that you took a lot of inspiration from different pop culture.
Totally. You want me to give you some examples?
I would love to hear some examples, especially if you have any for the classes. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I can rattle them off. In the book, every single class actually has a set of pop culture references to help people kind of pin it in their mind and give them inspiration.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, for example, for the Gunslinger, I have actual real life people like Annie Oakley and Ned Kelly, as well as the obvious, Roland Deschain from the Dark Tower. And then I also threw in a whole horse in there from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Cool.
All of whom I think kind of fit the trope and the archetype pretty well. Mm-hmm. For the Illusionist, similarly, I have real life people like Penn and Teller, and then nice. I have the Pokemon Zoroark, which is an illusion specialist. So, like I say, I try to really blend a lot of different inspiration sources. I don't know if you guys will get this reference because you guys are from the Midwest, right? The mountains. and I think this was a New England thing. There's a show called In Between the Lines that was
Oh
big
no,
in the 90s.
love
We
that show.
watch all the time.
Love that
Great
show.
show.
Oh,
Oh,
hell yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The
Yeah.
Theo and Cleo are character inspirations on The Librarian. They're
Okay,
like pop
that
culture
makes
references.
sense.
That's
In fact, I
really
remember
cool.
reading that, yeah.
Another
love
one of my
that.
favorites is on The Wanderer. I have The Cat in the Hat, who I think is a
Good.
pretty
Nice.
perfect
Good.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of fun examples that you can pin to. I personally love history and mythology, so I try to go for those where I can, but I fill in the gaps. And then I'm kind of pop culture illiterate in a lot of like, trendy, more contemporary stuff. I can give you like a weird 90s kids show reference, but probably not a Marvel one. And so I can
True.
also outsource to my Discord when I need help. And
Hey,
people can
guys.
help me in the blanks.
But I love that. I mean, like, I like, because I think that with, role-playing games and a lot of this kind of genre of stuff, I think it does get bogged down a lot of the time in that more contemporary, Marvel, The Walking Dead, like these super popular nerd things. And I like having the option of Between the Lines, a PBS show of, hey, this is something you can take inspiration from to play the game in whatever way you want to. I love that. I think that's a really
Absolutely.
cool.
Well, thank you. Another of my, for like a mythology side, the Thunderbird is mostly mythology. There's plenty of non-mythology references there, but there's a whole host of thunder gods like Zeus and Thor, but then Indra and Susano and Laegon and a bunch of others from world mythology that just fit beautifully and were very much what I was going for. So you can draw from a lot of sources, is I guess the summary. Of note, on the topic of classes, I am building towards the next expansion of Enclave. With luck, I'll have the Kickstarter ready for it next year at some point, probably, again, late summer or autumn. And that expansion is going to be introducing 6 new classes, but is also, as stretch goals, I'm going to have up to 24 more.
Oh, wow. Nice.
If we suddenly explode and get a ton of funding, I will put them all in. And
Cool.
for the 6 that were added, I actually put a poll to my community. And they voted on which ones they wanted to see, so I can rattle those off to you as well. The 24, I also am going to have a poll to show what order they get in.
Oh, cool.
And on top of that, a big part of Enclave is player-created classes. I don't have codified rules for it yet, but in Legacy, almost a fifth of our classes were player-created. It's a proud tradition that I intend on having robust rules to support in the next edition of the game, ideally, and if not, the one after. And even though there aren't like codified rules, it's awesome. And so I have on my Discord server 7 or 8 people who are creating like maybe as many as 10 player created classes at any given time. And when people like do the play testing, they get all the wording down. I commission official art for it from my artist. And we actually have a class that you can play on the Discord that is player created purely. And I'll happily tell you all about those too, because I love the player created class side of things. But along those same lines, as a reward for participating in Discord events, I give people free PDFs for new classes because I'm releasing kind of
sweet.
teaser versions of the classes that I'm going to put in the next edition. And we have 2 of them released plus a player created. So there's 3 more classes that you can get that aren't available in the book, and I'm going to be releasing a new one every month or 2.
Well,
Awesome.
Give us 2 examples.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
2 of your favorites.
The first one that you got to play with, Jim, is the Berserker. That's going to be in the next edition of the game. The Berserker is a classic melee combat, go berserk and murder everyone class that has a very high rate of friendly fire, which makes it very scary, but has enormous survivability and is a big kind of acting playground. If you can really show off your acting chops, the class actually gets stronger because the power of its frenzy is actually contingent on your commitment to it as a player.
Oh, I like
and
that.
The payoffs you get from it, right? Super fun. And as Jim saw, potential to go very horribly wrong.
I mean, I think I was almost more afraid of the Berserker than I was of the enemies that I was supposed to be taking down.
That's what always happens.
The hoops I had to jump through to avoid the Berserker were hysterical. I mean, it was, but it was so fun to do.
You point them at someone, they just kill them. It's so fun. So that's one. And the player created class that we have officially released is the Bogatyr. Which is a Slavic folklore hero, kind of like the Slavic equivalent of a questing knight. but with a very different tone.
Hmm.
It's way more comedic and like humble but braggadocious but self-deprecating but heroic. It's an incredibly interesting trope that's very consistent in Eastern European mythology and folklore. And it was created by my player Tomasz Staniak, who is a Bohemian medieval history specialist and archaeologist.
Cool.
And he put a ton of work into this thing. It is incredibly fun, and it is a class that is like a social combat class, like truly a hybrid of the two. That is incentivized to mock, taunt, and degrade its targets as they beat the hell out of them. And it's a very risky class to play because it wants to put itself right in danger and it doesn't have great defenses. But you can compensate for that by making fun of people.
Nice. That's fun.
Fun class.
So
yeah,
you mentioned Tomasz.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've noticed since I've started playing is that you have a really large Discord community that is directly contributing to what's happening. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was lucky that I learned how to not community build in Legacy. Right? I made my mistakes early. And so because of that, I had a much better idea of what I wanted out of a community going in. I've been very fortunate in who I've found and who's come to the game and who's become really invested in the game. We have a fantastic group. It's like, by big boy standards, it's not a huge Discord. It's like 200 plus people.
But for an indie game, that's actually pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And we also get at least 20 to 30 people regularly engaging, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Huge awesome percentage. And they're wonderful players. And not only we have so many great success stories among people. It's the wonderful thing for me is I'm at a point where for one of the first times in Enclave's entire existence, I can sit back and people just play the game and I don't have to do anything.
Right.
Which is incredible. And is one of the reasons that being a paid professional DM hosting your own game sucks. Is because you're constantly doing stuff and the game is you. You cannot grow beyond you.
Sure.
But I'm seeing it grow beyond me before my very eyes. People are talking to each other about, I have this PCC idea, like player created class idea, and I don't have to say a dang thing, and they just start riffing with each other, and they're hosting games all the time. Like it's a wonderful community. I'd say I could do a laundry list of all the players I love there, but I'd say one of the most notable cases is my buddy Detour, who you were on mission with, Jim.
Right.
David. He is a game designer who made a card game, Scrapbots, which is very fun. And I met him through kind of game design communities. And he had never played a tabletop game before in his life, before his first session of Enclave. And the second time, I think it was the second time he ever played, he hosted. He conduited.
Good for him.
Yeah.
And within 3 missions, he was an incredibly good conduit. And he is very consistent. He's a great player. Like you played with him. He's a great player.
Yeah, he's good.
Great guy. And just the fact that this guy who came to the genre completely fresh and was able to jump into the game so effectively that he could host on his second mission is enormous. And I think more than anything I've done, that is what speaks to the game's quality, I would say.
I agree.
No, that's really cool. You had mentioned to us earlier, before I cut you off before we started, that you go to conventions and you play this game pretty regularly with people at conventions. How is that experience? And it sounds like we may have some overlap with people that we've interacted with at some of these conventions.
Yeah, I gotta tell you guys, it's so cool. So when I used to go to conventions in Legacy days, like I said, I didn't have a product. It was pretty much a waste of time, but I met great people and I also got to work on my pitch. And one of the many benefits of Enclave's design is I can host a demo for anyone on the spot of any time.
At any time, right.
Sure.
Yeah. And of any duration too. If someone says, hey, I got 5 minutes, I can do a 5-minute demo. We're not going to make a character. We're just going to try, plop you in a combat situation. And you can see how it works.
Yeah.
Just to get people into the call and response flow of the game. Because almost inevitably, once someone actually sees how it works, they're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. I want to try it. That sounds really fun. And because of that, when I'm at conventions, I try my best to focus as much as I can on demoing very, very short form, as well as doing some long form stuff too. This year has been my first year really doing the con circuit in a very serious way. And by very serious, I mean I've done like 4. So there's room for improvement, right? But I've gotten a lot of practice with refining the pitch for the game and hosting on the fly. And I'd say that the like 5 to 10 minute demo is the greatest strength of the game when it comes to conventions.
No, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, because just to, I've gone to a lot of conventions, and it is tough to get people hooked initially because there's so much to see, so much to do, and just having that option of, it doesn't take long. Let's just try it, give it a go. That's really cool. That's got to be super nice.
We don't have flashing lights, we don't have screens. We don't have that much like tat that people can buy. There's no pretty shiny things. We just have like books, and we have badges, and that's like it. So. And because of that, you really have to like fight for attention. I'm a like rather loud and obnoxious person, so I'm pretty good at that. But it is hard to compete with like the speakers blasting Super Smash Brothers Ultimate semifinals next door, right? So it's been fun. But I've been wanting to tell you about this since it happened, Jim, and I finally can. I had a surreal experience at a convention I went to in Providence called Necronomicon like 2 weeks ago. And
great convention name. I'm sorry, incredible convention.
It's great.
Name.
Yeah, it's a Lovecraftian like horror literature convention that also has like a tabletop sub theme, right? And awesome. I got to play for the first time in my life. I was a player in a tabletop role playing game that was not my own. And even then, I almost never play my own. And I was playing on a live stream through the convention, like a convention event, that was hosted by Luke Stratton, creator of Pirate Borg. And I was playing Pirate Borg with him as my host.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was, not only was this the coolest thing in the world, I mentioned you guys to him. And he was like, oh, yeah, those guys out. It was because your review of Pirate Borg was what put it on the map for me.
Okay.
Is what actually made me look into the game. It's a fun game.
It
really is.
It's a great
game. Goofy, enjoyable fun. It feels like a Gilbert and Sullivan show.
Yes. With undead. Yeah. It's Gilbert and Sullivan with undead. That is exactly what it is.
And so I got to talk to him and his brother and play on like the stage with them. But on top of that, the other players in the game was this guy named Corey who did like a local charity. Super nice guy. And on top of that, 2 of the top guys at Chaosium, like the chief editor.
Wow, really?
Holy cow!
Wow.
And so I got to play with them. I didn't get to talk to them super much, but if I do, I'll be able to try to worm my little tentacles into them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's pretty really cool. Neat. That is pretty cool. But I will say,
getting to talk to Luke was fantastic. He's not only a really nice guy, but he's like where I aspire to be, because he got to where he is so bloody fast. He's like, he said 2 years ago he didn't have books.
Right.
And so it just makes me feel like, sky's the limit for an indie RPG that actually has something different going for it.
Sure.
I think you're exactly right. I met Luke at what was it? Was it Alexander? Was it Tacticon?
It was Tacticon. It wasn't No, it was Genghis Khan.
You're right. It was Genghis Khan in Denver.
It was Genghis Khan.
Yeah. I have heard of that one.
And he had a bunch of shiny stuff set up. I mean, he really did have, but it was relevant. It was relevant bling, like pirate ships and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I walked over and he looked at me and he probably saw the gray beard and he said, "You play old school, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And said, "Let me introduce you to this game." And he gave me, it was the same kind of thing. He gave me he had us play.
It was like 5 minutes.
5
we
minutes.
Were attacking a ship. Because he had like big 3D printed pirate ships, I think, that we interacted with. And he like sent us onto the ship.
He also uses miniatures from this amazing game called Pirates of the Spanish Main, I think it was called.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes. Oh, I loved that game. So when I saw the minis, I was like, I remember those.
But that was what it was. It was just, here, look at these cool things. Now come over and let me talk to you about my game. And I did.
His book. Yeah.
And he sold me the whole thing because his presentation was so good. But again, it was a unique new approach to. I mean, it wasn't a new approach because it's based on another game called Morkborg.
Yeah.
But he took Morkborg and he twisted it around and made it pirate centric, which was great. I mean, who doesn't like playing pirate games?
Yeah.
But you're right. He is the person that I think anybody aspires to be if they're going to be doing their own indie game, because he nailed it. But it wasn't all luck. I have to say, he really got out there and got after
Absolutely.
it. Really put in the time, but it's paying off for him.
Yeah, I'm hopefully going to be able to talk to him more and take more notes. Did you know he does all his own art?
Yes, I did. I did. If you go to his website, and the other great thing about them, and I don't want to make this into a pirate board, commercial.
It's relevant.
But he goes, if you go to his website and you get a hold of the game, he lets you download tons of things to be able to use in your game. They don't come with the book, which is a great idea, because then that keeps you going back to find out what's new and relevant with his game. He's really excellent at getting his game out there and keeping people interested in it.
Yeah. So I'm going to be trying to take notes from him, hopefully talk to him a little more, with luck, get him interested in Enclave if I'm super lucky.
Sure. The one thing I will say is that he is super busy.
He's knackered, yeah.
He is just.
I don't have high hopes for that, but if
but you never.
else,
But I wouldn't. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that he is really a busy guy, because every time I turn around, he's off to another. I hear about him being at another con someplace. I'm not saying like he's my buddy or anything. I don't know him really, other than a couple of casual conversations, but I just see reports of him being here and here and here, and that's like 2 time zones away from the last time he appeared somewhere.
From last weekend.
Exactly.
And he has a whole transport too. So yeah, it's one of those things where I know I'm not going to be able to do that because I have kids, but I can try to do my own like little version of it.
There you go.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Maybe bring some unique strengths.
There you go. And I think that you might be. I think that you're selling yourself a little bit short. I think that I think Enclave is really going to go places. Having played the game and have fallen in love with it, Enclave is really going to take off here real soon.
I appreciate it, Jim. I will say one thing that I will never be humble about is it's a great freaking game.
It is. It absolutely is. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Anything else that you want? Sorry, go ahead.
No, please, you first.
No, just anything else that you want to pass on about the game. One of the things I want to make sure of is that people know how to contact you, how to get a hold of you on Discord if you want that. However you want people to be able to get in touch with you. Let's talk about that real quick. And then we can also put that in the description of the video as well.
Yeah, I can pass you a link to my Discord server. And if people want to contact me directly on Discord, it's very easy. ROBBYLAVA, Robby Lava. Similarly, my email is robbylavagames@gmail.com. ROBBYLAVAGAMES. No funny business like caps or anything. We also have a Etsy store if you want to actually buy the game. It is robbylavagames.etsy.com.
There you go. And again, but all of this will be in the description. We'll make sure of that, and I'll check and make sure that I get all those links correct
YouTube
with
too,
you.
I guess. My YouTube's pretty small and is mostly actual plays, but it's again Robby Lava Games. You might have to search like Robby Lava Diceless Games or something like that because I'm too small for the algorithm to care much yet. But that's hopefully at some point, especially as I start trying to figure out what more relevant content I can make beyond just actual plays. Thank you for asking. That was the main other thing I wanted to mention beyond the final little plug of I host regular free events on the Discord server. It's called Enclave Day. We do one every 1 to 2 months, and it's completely free. If you don't own the game, you get a loaner copy so that you can play before you buy. If you do own the game, you get a new class for free, as I mentioned earlier. So we'd love to have you. Enclave Day is a really special thing, and we are also in the process of doing kind of crowdsourced edits for this edition of the game. I'm asking people what has worked, what hasn't worked, what they think should be buffed and nerfed. And so I'm going to be, when I do the next Kickstarter, again next year, I'm going to be putting out a new print run of this first edition of the game, Advent Edition. That is balance updated and everything. And so if you want to hear some of the design conversation, I'm very open about it, and I love when players contribute to it. So that's something we're doing on the Discord as well, including things like adding a new rule where when you host a session of the game, you actually get experience and loot credit for one of your own characters.
Hey, there you go.
Wait, love that.
So that's the sort of stuff we're doing, and we would love to have you there.
Anything else, Robby? We're coming up to 55 minutes. That's about how far we usually go on our podcast. I'm not trying to cut you short, but anything else that you want to make sure we touch on?
I think that I am all good. I could motor on forever, and it's always a delight getting to talk to you guys. The last thing I will say is to all of your listeners, thank you so much for giving me the time. I hope this has been interesting and engaging for you. If you guys at any point want to talk in more detail about the mechanics behind Enclave and the nuances of hosting it, I'm of course happy to, but that is a very in-depth and kind of crunchy topic. So I think it's probably best saved for another day. But beyond all, I am intensely grateful that you guys have given me the time to come on your platform. Like I said, I've loved your channel for quite some time. I think that you have some of the best D&D content out there, as well as being one of my favorite YouTube channels in general.
Thank you.
And it's surreal getting to talk to you. So thank you.
Well, it's very nice of you to say. And thank you for taking the time to come in and talk to us today. This is really exciting for us to be able to do this. So thank you as well.
And, as updates come along in terms of the development of Enclave, let us know. This doesn't have to be a one-time event, this conversation. If there's another time, if there's some more information that comes to you that you want to pass on to our listeners or to us, don't hesitate to reach out and let us know, and we'll see about finding a way to get that information out there.
No, I certainly will.
So, anyway, I think that's what Alexander, do you have any other questions that you wanted to ask?
No, nothing. That covers just about everything.
All right. Well, on behalf of Jim here at the Old Warlock and Robby Howell, Robby, again, thank you for being here. Alexander, are we ready to sign off?
I think we are indeed. So thank you all for stopping by. Again, check the links below for all the information about Robby and Enclave. Follow through. We've got a lot of cool stuff down there. Take a look. See what you can find.
And don't forget, if you're interested, please sign up for our newsletter. The first edition should be going out on what is it? September 1st.
September 1st.
September 1st is the first edition for the newsletter. We've had quite a few people sign up for that, more people than I expected. So that's going to be going out soon. If you would like to sign up for the newsletter, it's a PDF that will go out every 2-3 months maybe. Send us an email at officialoldwarlock@gmail.com and say, hey guys, sign me up for that newsletter. Aside from that, I am Jim.
I'm Alex.
And this is Robby, who has joined us. Keep your sword on free, guys.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.